Tonight, I decided to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to actually read a post that an individual made, and then we're just going to have a conversation about it and talk through it. We as leaders try to convince people to do something. Never a good spot to be in. People are going to do things that they feel or they believe or based on their values and their culture. They're going to do those things. You are training the next person to take your place. I coach that and I mentor that, all of the leaders, because if you're not training your replacement, then you're doing a disservice to the organization. And that's no different. You need to be training your replacement because I want you to go on and do better things. If you want to stay here, you'll always have a home. But for the most part, that's how succession works as a leader. And we got to instill that in the employees. We have to model that ourselves and coach that and work through that. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. I am your host, John Espinosa. Welcome everybody to the Leading Leaders podcast. Hey everyone, John here. So welcome to what I'm going to label Real Talk out here on the patio this evening. And one of the reasons that I upgraded the camera was so that way I could do some sessions while I'm on the road, record some of my keynotes, and do some sessions outside the studio. So we're going to see how well you all like it. Tonight, I decided to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to actually read a post that an individual made, and then we're just going to have a conversation about it and talk through it. So again, if you like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up, leave some comments. A lot of that feedback I listen to, I watch, and I respond. I'm very reactive to the feedback that we get on the podcast because in the end, this podcast is for you, the listener. If you're new to listening to the podcast, welcome to the Go Be Great community. I'm glad that you're joining us. And if you're a continued listener, thank you. Thank you for spending the time day in, day out. We publish this thing 3 times a week, and you're there. And I see you, I thank you, and I'm very appreciative that you tune in, listen to us. So I'm just going to read the post here, and then I'll give my 2 cents, and we'll have a conversation about it. So here's the post. It is from somebody, a manager, who's about to lose an employee because they don't trust the upper management. And I'm just going to read it verbatim. It says, "Hi all, I'm a fairly recent leader. I've been in this role for about 1 year and I manage a small team of less than 10 people. I'm about to lose one of the team members because he totally lost faith in the company and in the upper management of the company. Upon several occasions of bad communications between teams, upper management, taking questionable decisions without assessing impacts, and without communicating and leaving us with bigger problems to solve, the member has lost faith in their capacity of decision making and thinks this is a problem in the roots of the company that cannot be solved at all." Well, I just want to pause there because how many of us out there work for companies that decisions are made way above our pay grade, and we as frontline leaders, we as leaders have to go and implement them and communicate to the workforce the why, get the job done. So I'll continue reading. "He trusts me and our team, but he knows my actions are not enough to cause the impact that he thinks." That one little sentence there leads me to believe that maybe he's even lost faith in the leader that's writing this post, but we'll continue. "This affects everyone at some degree, but the majority knows how to overlook this problem, give their best work and what they have available, but this particular member reacts a lot in a way that contaminates the rest of the group." So you can see where this is going. You got somebody who doesn't trust upper management, is probably going back into the team and either bashing upper management or talking bad about their practices, the decision that they made, and how this team is going to be expected to implement. So right there, as a leader, you have somebody who is toxic to the team. It's a small team, and it sounds like this is a pretty good employee, but they had a bad day, and now they're, again, spreading that. It only takes one person to negatively impact the team, and it takes a whole lot more people to build that positivity back up. So let me continue here. What are possible ways that I could overcome this situation? Do I let him go? Do I try to reallocate him to another team role? Try to convince him to overlook things? Convince him that bad leadership happens in almost all companies? So a couple red flags just in that last little blurb there. When we as leaders try to convince people to do something, never a good spot to be in. People are going to do things that they feel or they believe or based on their values and their culture. They're going to do those things. And you can't convince somebody out of a belief. You can't convince somebody out of a value, especially a core value that they hold on to. And if this core value may be trust, and now this employee has mistrust with upper management, guess what? I don't care how good a convincing you are, you're going to have to put like a mind melt on somebody in order to get them to flip and all of a sudden start trusting upper management. So the word convince, red flag there. Reallocate him to another team role. Maybe. I think that's a discussion that you need to have with the employee. Sit them down and really get to the root cause. Ask good questions. Use the coach approach. What do you see is the true problem here? It may not be the trust whatsoever, but you need to find that out as a leader. And then just state the facts. I know you may not agree with the decision, but what do you need to get past this? What can I do as a leader to get us past this challenge? And then sit there and wait and let them respond. It may seem like forever, but those two questions alone are going to start to unpack some things about the employee. And then you can really start digging deep into other questions. Try to convince him to overlook things. Again, back to that convince word, and convince him that bad leadership happens in all companies. Bad leadership does happen in all companies. However, do you really want to convince them that bad leadership is everywhere? Again, just thought stacking, back to that self-fulfilling prophecy that bad leadership is bad leadership. I don't care where you go. That's not the approach that I would take, because then you start seeming like you're pulling on strings and you're just trying to, grab things that might not be there. So again, bad leadership occurs in most companies. However, if you continue to run away from bad leadership, guess what? You're probably going to find yourself out of a job unless you start your own company, and then you can lead that company however you want to. But for the most part, there's good leaders and bad leaders in every situation. So overall, I think, this boils down to one of two things for me. Trust between the frontline manager and this particular employee, and then trust between this employee and upper management. And again, as frontline leaders, we are the glue. We are the ones that don't necessarily keep the peace, but we got to unpack what's really going on. So that way, if there's a systemic issue, that's a situation where I would feel comfortable enough to go to maybe my leader, my manager, and say, I'm seeing this. It's not isolated. If it's just one employee, maybe. But if you're seeing the same style, or people are coming to you, or they're starting to retract from conversations whenever upper management gets in the room, that's something you as a leader probably need to take note of. And again, back to these difficult conversations. You're not in an easy place. There's Coco the cat. She decided to come join us this evening. That's the things you got to deal with outside. Plus, you got all the bugs here in Oklahoma. It's a beautiful evening here in Oklahoma, by the way. I'll tell you, it is July, late July for us. And I want to say it's probably high 60s, if not low 70s right now, which is unheard of late July. Normally the grass is getting crispy and the heat of summer is just starting to set in, but it's been absolutely beautiful. So I thought I'd take advantage of, especially this evening, come out of the patio and talk through this example with you. And this is something, I'll just continue on here because there's a couple comments on the bottom, but they ask, are you sure he hasn't or she hasn't lost faith in you as well? So as we were talking about earlier, in some degree, not that he, doesn't trust you, the leader, anymore, but we need to speak openly about it. and believe that actions aren't enough, your actions aren't going to be enough to solve those bigger problems. So back to that questioning, back to that coach approach, make sure that you ask open-ended questions. Begin with maybe some what questions, or how do you see the problem, so that way you can frame the situation. And this is going to be a prime example of where you as a leader, maybe a one-on-one conversation in an office, or if you're virtual, do it on a Zoom environment, one-on-one. Have yourself about 3 or 4 questions that you have written down. If you know some context behind, if you know this employee, that's even going to give you a better leg up on going into the conversation. It sounds like you got a small team, so hopefully this leader understands a team of 10. He probably knows the strengths and weaknesses of the individuals if they've been, regularly meeting with their team. So that's one approach to take it. Another approach is, maybe to go talk to others and not do it in singular instances, but throw some questions out there about other people's relationships with upper management. Maybe you got somebody who on the team consistently communicates with upper management. They may be a starting point to go sit down and just ask what their relationship is, or what has been the case. What is experience in presenting, giving briefings, providing information, and that will give you a little context into the situation. And that's the other piece. The lights go out, so hold with me here. Hopefully the camera there will adjust, but technology will prevail. I have these outdoor lights set up on a timer, and voila, there you go. So again, this is evidently somebody who has, I would even venture, trust issues with the organization. It may be a singular person in upper management, but for the most part, I'm guessing that it's the company or the organization itself that this individual has lost trust, and you may not be able to save this situation. However, you need to unpack it, and you need to understand, because this process that you will go through, discovering what the root cause or what the real challenge is to this one individual, is going to help you as a leader moving forward. See the signs. Maybe there were signs. Maybe you can go back. That may be the other thing that I may recommend is, okay, what are some examples? What have I seen? I always turn inwards. What could I have done as a leader? Was it in a meeting maybe that upper management spoke down to this individual and I wasn't there to speak up, or I didn't speak up? Just give an example. I always start in the back of my mind replaying those situations to see where I maybe could have stepped in, or maybe I'm contributing to this situation. But for the most part, you're going to have to maybe spend 2 to 3 conversations unpacking this, getting to the root cause, and in the end, you still may lose the employee. But as managers, I will tell you, if we're afraid to lose people, if we walk around scared that we're going to lose a key player, even the top performers in our organizations, you don't want to be in that mindset. We develop others, and by developing others, we get them the training, the resources, we cultivate relationships with other people with the expectation that they're going to leave. I want all of my team members, the people on my team, to go on and do better things. I understand that some people just come to work and they love what they're doing, and they may be lifers. They may stay forever, but I'm not ignorant to the fact that people are going to move on. And that's my mission as a leader. You've heard me say this, is to get others to where they're going. And I truly mean that. And a lot of times that means that you're going to have to backfill, you're going to have to replace. That's where your systems and processes can come in place. So as a leader, if you haven't lost somebody already, you will. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So make sure that you are creating capacity with your team. You're bringing others on board. You're mentoring within the team. You have primary and secondary backups. You're making sure that other people are involved in a majority of the high-level processes. Now, there's going to be individuals that do specific things within the organization, but for the most part, they should be sharing that. I've always, even when I was an individual contributor, I didn't want to be the single point of failure. I always wanted to leave the organization better than when I came into that organization. And that meant documenting processes, documenting best practices, making sure that you were training the next person to take your place. I coach that and I mentor that, all of the leaders. because if you're not training your replacement, then you're doing a disservice to the organization. And that's no different. And I tell my team that. I let them know that that's my expectation, that you need to be training your replacement because I want you to go on and do better things. If you want to stay here, you'll always have a home. But for the most part, that's how succession works. And a lot of times we don't do a very good job of succession planning in organizations, but that's on us. That's on us as a leader, and we got to instill that in the employees. We have to model that ourselves and coach that and work through that. So I wanted just to see how this went. Again, give me a thumbs up. Let me know. I'll continue to do these things. I love to sit on my patio, whether it's talking to you or talking to anybody else. So we're going to try this out. We're going to do it messy. You saw Coco in here. I'm surprised you didn't see one or two of the other animals out here roaming around. But I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope this helped somebody. Go be great. Have a good evening. We'll talk to everyone later. Bye. If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor. Click on that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.